Shalom, shalom. This video is about the Gospel of John chapter 11 verses 45 to 48 about the house of Annas' prayers against God's will to be done. And I'll read the text for you as I normally do and then hopefully shed a little bit more light in terms of context. So after Lazarus' resurrection, we read in the text, therefore many of the Judeans who had come to Miriam. Now remember, they came to Miriam, the extroverted, popular sister, whilst Martha, who was always working hard in the background, they didn't come to console her, only to Miriam. They come to Miriam. And they had seen what Yeshua had done, and they put their trust in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Yeshua had done. So the ruling Kohanim, and that refers to the house of Annas, and the Pharisees called a meeting of the Sanhedrin. What are we doing? They asked. This man is performing many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take away both our holy place and our nation. The house of Annas produced the corrupted high priest from Annas, who was the 64th high priest himself, who was appointed in 6 AD by the Roman governor Quirinius, and then his descendants after him, until the temple was destroyed in the year 70 AD, whilst the 83rd high priest Phinehas ben Samuel, who was appointed by King Agrippa II in the year 67 AD, 3 years before the destruction of the temple. That's the period on which the house of Annas were the ruling Kohanim, the ruling priests. Of course, these earthly rulers, the Roman emperors, had no mandate from Adonai to appoint the high priest. They appointed their lapdogs to the position. These were the unworthy Sadducees who advocated the false teaching that there is no life after death. Before Annas, the Sadducees were righteous, and even Yeshua himself was from the line of the righteous Sadducee high priest. Through his mother, the 58th, his mother was the granddaughter of the 58th high priest, who was named Joshua III, Jesus in Greek, ben Phabet. Joshua ben Phabet, and he was Joshua III, and he was Yeshua's great-grandfather, and he was a Sadducee, as was the first Sadducee, Simon the Just, in the ancestry of Yeshua's mother Miriam, of course. Of course, Yeshua was from the line of David through his adoptive father Joseph, but he was also from the line of David, and his maternal grandfather was the Davidic prince Eli, or also known as Heli. It's like a Greek version of Eli, and he also was called Alexander III, Prince Alexander III. But enough about Yeshua's ancestry. In the parable of Lazarus and the rich man, from which Lazarus had just been resurrected, it played itself out. The rich man was Annas' oldest son, Eliezer, who was the 66th high priest. He died after a short term, maybe 18 months, of serving as the high priest. In the parable, Abraham said that the rich man's brothers would not listen to Lazarus because they did not listen to the Torah and the prophets. And in these verses, we witness that what Abraham said, as the prayers of these brothers of the rich man in hell said, what are we doing? This man is performing many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take away both our holy place and our nation. So their prayers were prophetic in at least 5 ways, maybe more. If you think of more, let me know in the comments. Firstly, many believed in Yeshua, and rightly so. Secondly, the Romans came and took away their holy place with reference to the temple, which was burned down and completely destroyed by the Romans in the year 70 AD. As a matter of fact, at the time, there was no intention to burn the temple. They wanted to sack Jerusalem, but the temple got alight by accident, Josephus says. And then, because the walls, inner walls, were gold-cladded, the gold melted and by capillary actions was sucked in between the stones. And that's why once it burned, the Roman soldiers, there was no holding them back. They turned over every stone in order to extract the gold that resolidified in between the stones. Okay, then the third way in which their prayer were prophetic is because they saw to the killing of Yeshua, the position of high priest remained in the house of Annas, and it was not taken away from them until the temple was destroyed. And then, of course, it was taken away from them. That was their plan. Remember, they said, if we don't kill him, then our place will be taken away. So they killed him, and therefore they remained. A peculiar answer to an unjust prayer. And then in the fourth way their prayer were prophetic is because of the evil plans, their places were taken away from the holy place in eternity. So they joined their eldest brother, the rich man, in hell, in Hades, or in Gehenna. And then in the fifth way that I could think of, in which the prayer is fulfilled prophetically, is the nation was taken away in the year 73 or 74 AD. That's 3-4 years after the temple was destroyed. And the mass suicide of Masada happened then in 73-74 AD. And again, at the hand of the Romans in the year 135 AD, in the wake of the Bar Kokhba revolt, the nation was taken away and destroyed. There were so many Hebrew slaves, Israelite and Jewish slaves on the slave markets in Europe and in Africa, that the bottom fell out of the prices, and they were half a dozen for a dime, so to speak. Jewish slaves had no market value on the slave markets. That's why the European markets were flooded with Jewish slaves, so most of the Jewish slaves were sold into Africa as slaves, of course. And then the Romans tried to wipe out all memory of Israel by changing the name of the Holy Land to Palestine, which means the invaded land. That's the meaning of Palestine, the invaded land. And the Romans successfully, or unsuccessfully rather, tried to change the name of Jerusalem to Aelia Capitolina, but because Jerusalem is the eternal city, that name change never stuck. So the long and the short is, be careful what you pray for. In his righteous anger against the corrupt house of Annas, Adonai answered their prayer. What they feared the most, the very things from their prayer had come upon them in fulfillment. Also fulfillment of Job chapter 3 verse 25 and Jeremiah 42 verse 16 and 17. And you can read those for yourself. We have to seek Adonai's will in our prayers and not our own. These people, the Sadducees, the ruling Kohanim, they sought their own will and not the will of Adonai. So we should learn from that. Shalom, shalom.